Hello, BookTube. I'm here to do a tag for Tag Tuesday for once. It's the Sandman tag, created by BookTube Goddess, and I was tagged by Brandy at Booklectic. And there are seven questions, and I'm doing sort of a nonfiction version of this because I couldn't really think of enough fiction books, and it's even difficult for the nonfiction for me. But I think I got some interesting ones, and maybe a few that were maybe pushing it a little. But let's get into it. Number one, Destiny. What book or character do you think reflects your own life? Well, for nonfiction, that would be Nicholas Basbane's 1995 book, A Gentle Madness. It's basically a history of book collectors throughout time, right up to more or less the present of when it was written. Things that people did, the lengths they went to, even murder, to obtain a book, or collectors who piled books high, and people who collected a lot of books. Let's move on. Number two, death. What book has presented death or dying in a way that was unexpected to you? Now, I'm going, now it doesn't, but when I very first read it, it was a little unexpected of what I expected. Is the Egyptian Book of the Dead from the New Kingdom in ancient Egypt. And I read the Sir Wallace Budge translation first. And I think I'm sure I've read one or two others since then, but I have a fondness for this translation, and it was sort of I found it really interesting, fascinating, but also the way preparing the body to go into the other world, and the whole process was a bit of an eye opener to me. But then again, I was in my sort of mid to late teens when I first read it. Number three, dream. What book is like a dream or a nightmare? This wasn't too hard to pick. It was The Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud. It was published in 1899. Now, it's about dreams, but it's also a bloody nightmare as well. So, yeah, let's just leave it at that. Number four, what is your favorite book about a prodigal, I can't even get my tongue around it, character? And this one I had to think about, but then there's something that's been on my mind for quite recently that I want to reread, but I want to get a proper sort of edition of it, is the sort of travels of Marco Polo, and sort of, him and this part of his family were off in China for, decades or more, and then he comes back to Venice, and he's like, nobody actually knew who he was when he got back, or they didn't believe him. So it's sort of like coming back with tales of, and richness in many ways that changed a lot of things. Number five, desire. What is the sexiest book you have ever read? I couldn't think of anything in fiction, let alone non-fiction sort of. I was going to say, a biography of Louise Brooks, but nah. There is a book that I've not read that came out in 2019 that I'd like to read, and it is called Desire, A History of European Sexuality by Anna Clark, and it was published in 2019. And from what I can tell, it's exactly what it says on the title. So that would be, I guess, my answer for this, even though I've not read it. So, yeah. Number six, despair. What is the most depressing book you've ever read? Again, these questions were really difficult to get some answers for. And one that I thought was quite depressing at the time, and I'd like to reread it again because I do have a nice newer translation of it, which I had not had when I originally read this. And it's the Malleus Maleficarum. It's late 15th century. It's basically how to identify a witch, how to torture, and what you do with a witch. And it's quite depressing, because you know that this was done, and when you get the questioning section, you go, oh, geez, that's not very clear, and you can easily see how many innocent people could be tortured and killed because of it. And number 7, the last question. Delirium. What is the most absurd or nonsensical book you've ever read? Again, that was a really difficult one, but there was one that I got as a remainder about 4 years ago. Do I have a date? Yeah, it's 2012 it was written, so yeah, it could have been 4 years or 5 years ago. And it was like, I had to buy it because of the title, because I'm going, oh, really? You're writing a history of that? And it's called Scapegoat, A History of Blaming Other People by Charlie Campbell, 2012. And yeah, it's just, you wouldn't believe that you could write actually a history of something like that, it's an absurd subject, I would have thought, and would be nonsensical, but it's neither. So I'm cheating there a little bit, but it is a great book, and it is exactly what it says. It's going through history and historical bits and pieces, religious, you name it. It's a short book, so it's quite interesting. So yeah, that's sort of it. Now, I didn't think of tagging. Okay, well, let's see. I tag a Mark at Book Time with Elvis. I tag. If I think of any more, I'll put them down below. I just can't think of too many at the moment. But yeah, I'll put them down at the bottom. Anyway, that's my tag for Tag Tuesday. See you later, BookTube.